There is a seemingly endless amount of accessories available for the Steam Deck, and one category that I've always been outspoken against purchasing are cooling fans. I just don't see how any amount of external cooling could be beneficial or convenient. Now, that hasn't stopped some people from commenting that I'm wrong about cooling my Steam Deck. Well, I put my money where my mouth is and ended up buying every single Steam Deck cooler I could find. And that doesn't just include the fans. There are a bunch of weirdo stuff in there as well, but all of these items have the same thing in common. They promise to make your Steam Deck perform better and lower temperatures. We'll see about that. Hey there, my name's Jason. Heat on the Steam Deck is something that most owners worry about at least once. It's no surprise, when cranking Cyberpunk to the max, you are going to feel some very hot air coming out of that vent. When power is being used, it will create heat, and that heat needs to be expelled. That is the expected use case for pretty much every gaming product, but a lot of people aren't familiar with that. I get so many comments about people worried that their Steam Deck or even their gaming computer is going to catch fire. And when I follow up and ask why do you think that? They just say the air coming out the back feels very hot. Yes, correct. That's what happens, man. Hot air is normal. I'd be more worried if there wasn't hot air coming out. This is especially prevalent in a handheld since there's not a lot of space for cooling and air to get out. So Valve had to get really creative to make sure that this performs the absolute best it can without overheating. Now, overheating is a very loaded term, so before we continue, I think we need to go over what exactly that means. When speaking in hardware terms, overheating usually means that the product is getting so hot that it is either A, thermal throttling, which means that the CPU in the device forces itself to become much lower powered temporarily until temperatures get better, or B, shutting off randomly. This is also a fail-safe maneuver to protect your device from getting too hot and damaging itself. Now, if you aren't experiencing massive slowdowns in games or shutdowns, then I would say that your device isn't overheating. All devices are different, so they all have different timings and temperatures. But on average with computers, you will start to see thermal throttling on your chip when it begins to exceed 90 to 95 degrees Celsius. So the chip will detect that it's getting too hot and begins to use less power to bring down the heat temporarily. Shutdowns begin a little higher, around the 100 to 105 degree Celsius range. So if you see your computer or Steam Deck or whatever playing a AAA game, max settings at 80 degrees Celsius, that is very normal, as your device is doing its best job to pump out as much power as it can and still stay within safe temperature ranges. Now, I know 80 degrees C sounds flippin' hot, but we're talking about electronics, not human bodies, okay? And you aren't running your Steam Deck at 80 degrees 24/7. It's only while you are playing. The moment you turn off the game, the temperatures start dropping immediately. All that being said, people are still interested in coolers on their Steam Deck, so I went out and I purchased every single one I could find. Some disclaimers first. A few of these were sent to me free from the manufacturers, but as always, I have a rule that states, if it sucks, it sucks. There are a few other Steam Deck coolers on the market that aren't in this video, but they are primarily copies of the ones we have here, with a new sticker slapped on, so I didn't bother grabbing them. I believe I've covered all the bases here with all the coolers that actually matter. These aren't just fans, they are backplates, thermal pads, and other gizmos. My test methodology for these started as just running a few Cyberpunk 2077 benchmark tests, but I found that the temperatures needed to be higher for a bit longer than a 2-minute benchmark due to heat soaking. So I just ran around in Cyberpunk for like 15 minutes and took an average. All the settings are set to high, just trying to push the Steam Deck as hard as I could. I'll go over the cooling methods one by one and then give some personal recommendations at the end. I don't want to make this video an hour long, so I might zoom past some of the coolers if they're just unremarkable. Before doing anything, I wanted to get a baseline reading. So this is using the standard Steam Deck, no modifications, no extra fans or anything. Running Cyberpunk for 15 minutes, the CPU and GPU temperatures averaged about 84 degrees. This is pretty much what I expected when playing a AAA game at max settings in an air-conditioned room. It's hot, but it's not going to start shutting down or thermal throttling anytime soon. We're going to call the 84 degrees our baseline and provide a buffer margin of error of about 1 to 2 degrees Celsius. This would make up for weird inaccuracies during testing or idle temperature in the room going up or down momentarily. Simply speaking, if any of our testing methods come out to be anywhere between 82 to 86 degrees, it's within a margin of error and not enough of a change to even state that it's making any difference. JSAUX is a company that is kind of known in the Steam Deck space for making unique accessories, and their cooling devices are no exception. First up is their transparent backplate version 1. The only cooling aspect of this is a small thermal pad on the inside that matches up with a heatsink that covers the CPU. In theory, the heat from the heatsink transfers to the thermal pad and then transfers to the metal and dissipates it into the air outside it. It appears to work at first glance because while playing, if your little fingy ever accidentally touches this metal part, it's very, very hot. But let's see how this actually performs. During benchmarks, we averaged about 81.5 degrees between our CPU and GPU temperatures, which is slightly lower than our margin of error. We didn't see any increase in FPS or anything, but we did see a slight decrease in fan RPMs by about 400, basically meaning the fan is going to spin a little slower because the thermal pad is soaking up some of that heat, making the loud noise coming from your fan just a little bit quieter. It might not be massive, but I'm just happy to see any kind of change. JSAUX sells this magnetic cooling fan as an optional upgrade for this backplate. It comes with a sticky metal plate that is meant to be applied over this metal plate, and then the fan will just sit on top. The fan is powered with a provided USB-A cable, meaning you can't use this directly on your Steam Deck. You're going to need an adapter or a dock to plug the fan into. It cycles through these RGB colors and has a high and low setting. I had high hopes for this because when it's plugged in and running, this backplate gets so cold that it actually starts building condensation. Like, it's actually extremely cold to the touch. And we did see a slight increase in cooling performance, with the temperatures averaging out to about 80 degrees. I feel like this could actually work if it was attached directly to the heatsink inside the backplate, but that would be a little dangerous since it's building up condensation and could damage the components. Following this up is the version 2 of the backplate that was released recently. It has a few changes, notably that the metal pad is now on the inside, so your little fingies don't get burned anymore, as well as a vent over the cooling fan. But other than that, the design is still pretty much the same. Testing the V2 of this backplate under the same settings, we averaged 77.5 degrees, which is slightly better than the V1, so it's nice to see that the update actually did something. And to wrap up the JSAUX category, they also have this turbine type cooler. It has a battery, so you don't need to plug it in during use, and is adjustable to easily slip on whenever you want a little more cooling. This design is interesting because it's essentially sucking the hot air out of the Steam Deck at a higher rate, which in theory should just help keep the internal temperatures down. Using the stock Steam Deck backplate and this cooler on the high setting, we averaged 76.5 degrees on the chip, which is a considerable temperature drop from our baseline levels. I think we're going to see a trend with these types of coolers going forward. This next one might be the most interesting cooler we are looking at today, as it's a cooling fan that is built into the backplate with a thermal pad on the inside. This one also came with an entire Steam Deck case, a high-powered USB-C power cable for the fan, and some installation tools like a pick, screwdriver, and extra screws. The cable provided is not even USB powered, so this would only be usable while being plugged into the wall. The packaging was very interesting because the cooler was manufactured by a company called Benazcap, but inside the packaging was a warranty card from a company called Z to Top Case, which had Japanese all over it, but after a quick who is search, can find that this company is also from China. So I'm not sure how these two companies are related, or if they are even the same company under two banners, but I just wanted to quickly read the About Me page from Z to Top Case's website. The first letter Z is the last one of the 26 letters, which is the smallest one, and we should show it first with the smallest identity, because we are the youngest. We should treat others with modesty attitude, inclusive heart accept others, earnest and cautious work, use the power of unity to develop the market. So you know you're getting quality from these guys. At the time of purchase, this thing only costs like $34 on sale, which is a surprisingly good price considering it comes with a new backplate, a fan, a kickstand, and even an entire carrying case that actually isn't that bad as far as case protection goes. The reviews on Amazon were showing that this would easily reduce the temperatures by 5 to 8 degrees, so I had really high hopes for this one because if it worked well, this is a totally good deal. But much like my evening after junior prom, that optimism quickly shattered. After letting our test run for about 15 minutes, we averaged about 82 degrees between the CPU and GPU, which is within the margin of error from our stock configuration. I believe this kind of product could work in theory, but you'd need more contact inside the Steam Deck using more thermal pads. But for now, it's just not making enough contact to the inside to make any kind of difference. They also expect you to plug in the fan using this giant thing, so I just don't think this product is worth the trouble. EasySMX is another turbine cooler with a battery. It's very similar to the JSAUX one, but instead of clipping to the bottom, it has a soft part that kind of sticks to the back of the Steam Deck. There are 3 levels of fan speed indicated by the lights on the top, and just like the other turbine, it sucks hot air out of the Steam Deck at a higher rate and expels it. This is probably the most subtle design out of all of them so far, and it actually has a good solid build design. It averaged 76 degrees on our testing, which is some of the lowest temperatures we've seen so far, and I do kind of like the look of it. Next up is the Binbok, a fake sounding turbine cooler that isn't adjustable and just claps onto the top and bottom of your Steam Deck. It's battery powered and has a little turning knob to increase the fan speed to, once again, just suck air out at a higher rate. The Binbok comes with a little kickstand built in. Nothing fancy here. Let's see what the performance is like. Hey, 78 degrees, not bad. But I should note that this thing is loud as hell, so no way you'll catch me slapping this thing on my Steam Deck. But hey, at least it did something, unlike our next product. Stupid Fan is a product that I've reviewed on this channel before, so I'll go over it quickly. This is essentially 2 small fans that are powered via USB-C, emits a blue LED, and has no physical contact with the backplate whatsoever for cooling. So it's essentially just trying to blow the air around the Steam Deck. I tested it again because why not? And again, there was literally no difference between using this fan and using the stock backplate. All this item does is waste your battery, make a loud fan noise, and emit an ugly blue LED. All negatives in my book without any positives. If you want to spend your money that bad, I recommend becoming a member of the channel by hitting the join button below. It would be a better investment supporting independent creators like myself instead of buying this shit. Last but not least, we have the SD Cooler. Can you guess what SD stands for? That's right, it means
Steam Deck.
Just by looking at it, you can tell it's another rip-off Turbine cooler with nothing unique about it. Has a battery, charges USB-C, and sucks air out. During testing, it only averaged about 81 degrees. So while it was technically cooler than stock, it was the worst performer out of all of the Turbine coolers we tested today. I'd skip it entirely if I was you. Now that wraps up the testing portion of the video, so let's get into my personal recommendations. If your Steam Deck is actually overheating, as in it's turning off because it is getting too hot, then you don't need to go out and buy a third-party cooler. You need to contact Valve and tell them your device is defective. That is not normal operation for your Steam Deck, and so they need to figure out what's going on. If you are outside of your warranty and your device is overheating, your internal fan is probably stopped working. So I recommend testing and replacing that yourself instead of buying anything here on this video. We saw from the testing that some of these items actually do reduce the temperature of your Steam Deck, so there is at least that. But personally, I feel like, who cares? It doesn't increase performance, it probably won't increase the life of the device, and it's just one more thing you have to charge or carry around or plug into a flippin' wall socket. The difference between your device being 75 degrees and 80 degrees is negligible and really won't have much effect on anything. The Steam Deck is as powerful as it's going to get without totally modifying the entire thing. And it's going to spew hot air. That's just how it is. So don't worry too much about heat unless you find yourself thermal throttling or shutting off randomly. From this list, the only thing I might recommend to buy is the JSAUX Backplate V2, because at least you get a transparent backplate that looks kind of cool. And any extra cooling that comes with it would just be an extra perk. But other than that, I think you should spend your extra money on more games and then play them. Isn't that the whole point of all this? Please like the video if it brought value to you and consider subscribing for more Steam Deck and technology content to help me pay off all of these coolers. They are going to break my legs if you don't. My name is Jason, thanks for watching.